Sensei Ishikawa's tale is one of my favorite storylines in Ghosts of Tsushima, and that's in no small part thanks to its antagonist, Tomoe. A former student of his gone rogue, she presents an interesting little tale. Tomoe has a relatively small story compared to the rest of the villains I've covered on the channel, but I think she still has some interesting topics to cover. Ishikawa's tale is structured in a way where we never actually see most of the important events happen, we just get to hear both Ishikawa and Tomoe tell us their side. But where does the truth lie? Starting with Ishikawa's story, we come across him shortly after he was attacked by what he claims were some bandits. Jin tries to recruit him to help rescue Lord Shimura from the Mongols, but Ishikawa's student Tomoe is missing, so he can't help us until we help him find her. We follow her trail to Fort Nakayama, which has been taken over by Mongols. After clearing out the fort, Jin and Ishikawa search for evidence pointing to what might have happened to Tomoe. They find Japanese arrows buried in the practice targets, scrolls translating Ishikawa's way of the bow into Mongolian, and sleeping quarters that clearly belonged to a woman. All evidence that Tomoe wasn't exactly a prisoner here. They also find a prisoner who hadn't quite died yet, who tells them that he witnessed Tomoe executing the other prisoners. They continue tracking down Mongol archery camps and find another prisoner who managed to overhear Tomoe giving orders to the Mongols.
Something about the sensei and the hot springs. That's all I heard, my lord. Forgive me.
Realizing she was setting up an attack on Hiyoshi Springs, Jin and Ishikawa plan out a defense, and in the process deal with some more Mongols, and one of them has a message from Tomoe.
Sensei, all of Hiyoshi Springs will beg for mercy, like the victims of Hironori now. Silence!
The two of them successfully repel the Mongols and defend Hiyoshi Springs, but at the end of the fight, Ishikawa looks up to his dojo and sees Tomoe there taunting him and burning the clan Nagao banners. Their tale continues in Act 2, where Ishikawa goes out on his own, following any lead on Tomoe that he can find. His bloodlust for tracking Tomoe down blinded him, however, as Jin has to rescue him once he finds himself surrounded by Mongols.
You didn't notice them because you were too focused on finding Tomoe.
Even I make mistakes, Sakai.
No, you don't. Except with her.
We continue to follow Ishikawa's leads for a while, and one of the Mongol archery camps we raid has a letter written by Tomoe to be delivered to Khoten Khan.
What does it say?
Great Khan, conqueror of Tsushima. Before the year is over, your archers will know all I do about killing samurai. And I will deliver the heads of Sensei Ishikawa and Jin Sakai.
Furthermore, she spreads rumors amongst the people of Otsuna about the ghost and the demon sensei, sowing discord by blaming us for the attacks on caravans by her and her Mongols.
From Lord Sakai and Sensei Ishikawa, no travel is permitted on these roads, on pain of death.
Jin and Ishikawa track down the Mongols responsible for the caravan attacks and find a tied-up woman, distressed that we've arrived.
She said I could live until the samurai came.
And she is promptly executed by the Mongols immediately after. For the final quest in Act 2, a woman named Ran stumbles upon Tomoe's camp while foraging, and gives us some directions so that we can end her terrorism once and for all. Jin and Ishikawa track down this Mongol camp and slaughter everyone there. Tomoe arrives with some reinforcements, and Ishikawa stays behind to deal with the new Mongols while Jin hops on his horse and chases down Tomoe. He follows her until they arrive at a cliff on the edge of the island where she tries to sow the seeds of doubt in us.
Tomoe, why are we talking?
So I can warn you to watch your back. My sensei tried to kill me. He'll try the same with you.
She then leaps off the cliff into the ocean. Surely that's the last we'll have to deal with her, right? But all along, there's something wrong with Ishikawa's storytelling. Everything he says feels incredibly biased, as if he doesn't trust that we'll come to the same conclusions about Tomoe, and he has to trick us in deciding with him. He leaves out critical pieces of information or lies about how certain events took place, only clarifying them when contradictions come to light. At first, he was attacked by bandits, but then when Jin presses him for reasons why she might have joined the Mongols, the story changes to she attacked him. And later when Jin asks him exactly what happened when Tomoe betrayed him, The story changes once again to Ishikawa attacked her after she taught his techniques to some bandits. When Jin asks him if Hironori Nagao, a renowned archer, studied underneath him, Ishikawa vehemently denies it, but is later caught in a lie when he accidentally reveals that Tomoe was his first student since Hironori. And then there's the woman in the Mongol camp who was executed upon her arrival. After clearing out the Mongols, Ishikawa admits that he had spoken to this woman 2 days ago, asking her to investigate the location of a Mongol camp that she had previously mentioned. But he neglected to bring this up until after the damage was done and she had already paid the cost for his actions. So, I said that Tomoe tried to sow the seeds of doubt in us, but that might not actually be the case. Ishikawa does give reasonable doubt to the words he both does and doesn't say, so from Tomoe's perspective, she might not think that she's lying. In the last couple of quests, we meet Tomoe and get to hear her perspective on some of the things we talked about. I won't retell everything from Tomoe's perspective, as major events are all largely the same, but she does offer her own justifications for what she did that differ from what Ishikawa deduced. Starting with Fort Nakayama, she defends her actions by saying that the prisoners there were being tortured, and by offering to execute them herself, she was putting them out of their misery, offering them a quick and painless death. And teaching Ishikawa's way of the bow to the Mongols was her way of securing her own survival. As for Act 2, she claims that she had been betrayed by the Mongols by then, and she shouldn't be held responsible for the actions of her archers. She had given them instructions to avoid a confrontation with Jin and Ishikawa, which they clearly ignored, and the woman who was executed when the samurai arrived wasn't killed by her orders, as the Mongols had taken charge by that point. Moving on to Act 3, we get the conclusion of her and Ishikawa's tale. Tomoe was now in hiding from the Mongols and was calling herself Matsu. Jin comes across some Mongols with Japanese arrows in their backs, and Matsu sees him examining the bodies and goes to talk to him. She says that an older samurai was the one who killed them and that he planned to return to her house later, and Jin goes along with her, hoping to meet up with Sensei Ishikawa. On their way back to Matsu's house, Jin picks up that she isn't who she claims to be. She says something eerily similar to what Ishikawa had once said, and Jin reveals that he's picked up on the truth.
Sensei Ishikawa said something similar. But it sounds more natural coming from you, Tomoe.
Tomoe then reveals her true intentions to Jin. The Mongols turned against her, and she needs help to kill all of the archers that she trained. She knows where they'll attack next, and proposes that Jin and Ishikawa help her ambush them. This would give Jin and Ishikawa a victory over the Mongols, and it would give her revenge. Jin leaves to go talk it over with Sensei Ishikawa.
Jin, you can stay the night.
No, Tomoe. I can't.
Against Ishikawa's immediate judgment, they agree to meet Tomoe. Her former archers are planning an attack on Umugi Cove, and she needs our help and manpower to stop them. Mongols ambush the three of them just as they meet up. Ishikawa thinks this was a trap set up by Tomoe, but Jin manages to talk him down, pointing that she fought back against the Mongols.
Fine. But if Tomoe even breathes wrong, I'll put her in the dirt.
The three of them ambush or sneak by several Mongol patrols on their way to Umugi Cove. During one final skirmish just outside town, Tomoe disappears towards the end of the fight. Ishikawa says he saw her near the archway that leads into Umugi Cove. They give chase and ask a villager just outside town if she had seen a woman run by.
A warrior. She was headed for the beach.
Ishikawa immediately realizes what happened. Tomoe didn't just alert us of the Mongol attack out of the goodness of her heart, she needed security. The Mongols were hunting her, and by stopping the attack on Umugi Cove, he and Jin had bought Tomoe enough time to slip by the Mongols and board a ship leaving the island. They sprint after her to the beach, but Tomoe is already gone, and a ship is sailing away in the distance. Ishikawa pulls out his bow preparing to fire an arrow, but Jin stops him when he notices Tomoe's mask, bow, and a note on the ground.
Sensei Ishikawa, we have judged each other harshly, but the Buddha tells us that our greatest enemies can be our best teachers.
I am grateful for your teaching. and for the chance to fight by your side a final time. I have been your student. I would have become your daughter. But the way of the bow is behind me now. What lies ahead? I am like an arrow shot from a bow. Who knows where the wind will take me?
There's a saying that there are 3 sides to every story: mine, yours, and the truth. We have Sensei Ishikawa and Tomoe's sides, but there's very little objectivity in them. Both of them are heavily biased sources, and I've already gone over how unreliable Sensei Ishikawa continually is. Both Tomoe's story and Sensei Ishikawa's story are simply from their own point of view, noticing things that specifically helped their own belief and probably ignoring many other things. Take Tomoe executing the Japanese prisoners at Fort Nakayama as an example. When Sensei Ishikawa hears a dying prisoner tell him this, he's absolutely livid, and the only possibility in his mind is that Tomoe did this out of malice. When Jin asks her about it later, she claims it was out of mercy, and the Mongols spared her because of it.
I won't apologize for surviving.
But the way she responds feels very narrow-minded and off in a similar way to Sensei Ishikawa's story, as if she felt that being objective wouldn't be enough to justify her actions, so she had to convince herself that what she did was the only possible solution. Now, admittedly, we have perfect hindsight and know that Jin and Ishikawa eventually track her down to Fort Nakayama and kill the Mongols there, but Tomoe doesn't acknowledge this later on and continues her staunch belief that she did the only possible course of action that would have gotten her out of there. So she claims that her actions at Fort Nakayama weren't done out of malice, but what about everything after that? She continued assisting the Mongols, setting up archery camps, training new archers under Ishikawa's way of the bow. She leads an attack on Hiyoshi Springs, maintains her vendetta against Ishikawa over all else. That is, until the leopards turned around and ate her face. Again, she justifies this to herself by claiming that she lost control and that she was betrayed by the Mongols who had effectively taken charge. So we have Ishikawa's account being unreliable due to him intentionally controlling the information so that it fits his narrative, blatantly lying to us if he needs to. And then we have Tomoe's account, which is equally unreliable because she's forced herself to view the world from her extremely specific viewpoint, intentionally or not. Sadly, we never get to learn the true story, so anything I could come up with for the truth is just going to be speculation. We do get a couple small glimpses at outside perspectives, which hint that the information we're given isn't necessarily objectively accurate, but this information still comes from people who could have easily inserted their own biases. I actually quite like Tomoe as a character, which, as I learned while researching for this video, isn't exactly a universal opinion. So what do I like about her? I like the different style of storytelling that they go with for Ishikawa's tale. The rest of the game is fairly straightforward to piece together, and while there may be the occasional mystery, the pieces start to come together eventually, allowing us to figure out what happened. And notably, right versus wrong is usually fairly well outlined. Our guy is usually right but has to overcome their demons, and their guy is usually wrong. With both Ishikawa and Tomoe being unreliable narrators, we're forced to question everything they tell us and fill in the blanks and judge the characters for ourselves. My perception of what Tomoe went through with the Mongols could be totally different from yours and even the developer's intention, but that's okay. More often than not, a character like Tomoe would have been written as a villain with a tragic backstory, seemingly forced into her way of life. And she'd give some grand, heart-wrenching speech right before a boss battle where we'd kill her. And while there's nothing wrong with that, I do enjoy that they took her character in a different direction. She does have that tragic backstory, but she earned herself a better life training under Ishikawa, and he was even ready to adopt her. But for some reason, she fell back on her old ways. Tomoe is actually given agency as a character and actively makes the decision to betray Ishikawa initially. Sure, she claims she lost that agency under the Mongols, but I just went over how she's an unreliable narrator and likely had many more options than she thought she actually did. And speaking of her tragic backstory, I didn't really bring it up before because, one, there's very little of it that we're given, and two, only a couple details are actually relevant to her character. She grew up a thief. Ishikawa noticed red flags all over the place, like the blade she hid in her sleeve and how she would hoard food. My two main takeaways from a younger Tomoe are secrecy and subterfuge. The ending to Ishikawa's tale is often pointed out as a bad ending, and while I can agree with it in some aspects, I think any disappointment I have has nothing to do with Tomoe. To me, Tomoe escaping in the way that she does is a perfect conclusion to her story arc. Sure, it's not climactic, nor does it give us that sense of resolution that all the other storylines do, but she's a thief. She's not supposed to be the main focus. She's supposed to divert our attention elsewhere while she does her thing. And this is exactly what happens. She knows that she can't stay on Tsushima. Both the Mongols and Japanese are searching for her, so she takes advantage of what she can. Knowing that we'll bite at the chance to save Umugi Cove from a Mongol attack, she kills two birds with one stone, getting revenge on her archers for betraying her and having us unwittingly enable her escape. If we look at the ending from Tomoe's perspective, I don't necessarily think her story is one of redemption. Perhaps she has atonement in her future, or perhaps her note was lying to us and she'll continue her thieving ways. I do find one thing slightly disappointing about this ending though, and that's Jin stopping Ishikawa from firing an arrow. I felt that Jin was a little bit too forgiving of Tomoe when he sees her mask and bow left behind. If push came to shove, I'm not so sure that Ishikawa would have been mentally able to kill Tomoe at the end there, and I wanted to see him miss, and then the scene could have played out more or less exactly the way it did. Or maybe she was too far away already and Ishikawa wouldn't have been able to fire an arrow that far. One thing I've seen a lot of is comparisons between Tomoe and Ryuzo, and it's understandable to notice some parallels between them. They both betrayed Tsushima for their own selfish reasons, Tomoe to ensure her survival while being held prisoner, and Ryuzo to ensure that he can feed his Straw Hats. But Ryuzo's story ends differently when Jin refuses to forgive him and fights him to the death, while Tomoe isn't given the same level of hostility. At first, this seems confusing, and a lot of people wondered why Tomoe got this special treatment while Ryuzo doesn't. However, in retrospect, I think it makes sense. Jin does offer Ryuzo a second chance at Castle Kaneda after besting him in a duel, but Ryuzo doubles down and yells, alerting the Mongols to Jin's exact location. For Jin, Ryuzo was his oldest friend, and he basically spat on Jin's offer of redemption. When they meet again at Castle Shimura, Ryuzo asks Jin to lie for him, saying that all along he was a spy for the Ghost. He offers no atonement, no apologies, and straight up asks Jin to simply absolve him of all the crimes that he's committed. Tomoe, on the other hand, while unapologetic for doing what she had to do to survive, at least tries to justify herself. She offers explanations as to why she felt forced down the path she took, and provides information to Jin and Ishikawa to stop a Mongol attack and kill all the archers that she claims she was forced to train. And importantly, Tomoe wasn't personal for Jin. It was personal for Ishikawa, but he's proven to be an unreliable narrator by now. And with enough plausible deniability in Tomoe's intent, combined with the fact that she was already sailing for the mainland, Jin just didn't see the point. His resolve was to protect Tsushima, and Tomoe was already gone. I know in the last section I mentioned that Jin stopping Ishikawa from firing his arrow was a bit of a disappointment for me, but at the same time I can see a world where Jin just accepts this is reality now. You can't save everyone, and she was no longer his problem. But why Ishikawa didn't just fire anyways and miss is anyone's guess. And before we wrap things up, of course I've got to quickly go over Tomoe's real-world influences. She almost certainly takes inspiration from the Japanese Onimusha Tomoe Gozen, who may or may not have actually existed. The way her Wikipedia article is phrased seems to imply that she likely didn't, but then there's this guy on Reddit who says that most people who've studied Japanese history would agree that she did. I'm not an expert on the subject, but for our sakes, it doesn't particularly matter either way. Tomoe Gozen is a character in the Heike Monogatari, or the Tale of the Heike, which is generally thought to be a fictional dramatization of the Genpei War. She is described as especially beautiful with white skin, long hair, and charming features. She was also a remarkably strong archer, and as a swordswoman, she was a warrior worth 1,000, ready to confront a demon or god, mounted or on foot. This description lines up pretty well with Ghost of Tsushima's Tomoe. When she showed up at Sensei Ishikawa's dojo, she showed incredible promise and was very quick to pick up on his teachings. Later in the game, she demonstrates herself to be more than capable in combat. And as for the especially beautiful part, I'll just let that speak for itself. Alright, and before I end the video, I wanted to create this tier list for the villains on my channel that I can add on to with every new villain that I cover. It's not going to be a straight up ranking, and the tiers are going to be renamed to be a bit more descriptive to reflect that. Although the villains that I prefer will generally end up in the top half, and the ones I like a bit less more towards the bottom. But if I've covered them on my channel, then they're all still characters that I really enjoy, so everyone here is still a solid villain in my opinion. Now, starting off, we're going to toss Gontaro Dim, where is he? Handsome Jack, Luca Blight, and Albedo Piazzolla, and Kamoshida up in the top tier. These are all my favorite villains that I've covered on the channel so far, and you can watch my full video on them if you're interested to figure out why, and hopefully soon we'll be getting out a video going over my top 5 video game villains of all time, alongside a couple honorable mentions. Kamoshida didn't quite make the top 5, but he's very close, so I think he still deserves a spot up in the top tier. And we're going to name that tier the best, as according to me, they're the best. Now, moving on, Edelgard will drop in a tier just below them. And we're going to rename this tier to Potential Woman. And she's just a little bit below the rest of these characters because the storytelling of Fire Emblem Three Houses really hinders the way that her character's allowed to develop. And so she's kind of, I don't want to go into the full thing, but just, she's very hindered by the game mechanics and storytelling mechanics of Fire Emblems, and we'll move on from there. Another character that I feel is a bit held back by the, I don't know how to describe it. Kefka, I think. I think it's just Final Fantasy VI is old, and full, interesting backstories weren't really being written into games back then quite as much. And so we get one throwaway line of dialogue that talks about Kefka before he became insane, and that's all we get for any character development for him, really. So he sits, I think him sitting right here with Edelgard is appropriate for him. And if he got the same character development that any of the guys up top did, he would probably be up there with them as well. Next up, we got a few of them that are just cool. These guys get the aura farming tier. All three of them, Magus, Sephiroth, Raven. They're all just cool. Aura farming. That's all I gotta say. It's really complicated. I'm gonna toss the entire Descendre family and Ultimecia into this tier. Expedition 33, fantastic game. Highly recommend if you're an RPG fan. It's just, there's a lot going on, so it's very hard to digest. Ultimecia, she's here more because, I guess kind of similar reasons to Kefka. Square hadn't fully figured out how to develop a character to their fullest in one game. Sephiroth's a bit higher because he's had a movie, a book, 15 different games, whatever more to further develop himself, while Ultimecia's only had Final Fantasy VIII. We're going to create one extra tier down here, and we're going to call it Fun and Simple. And here we got Smithy, Exdeath, and Zulf. Don't really have much more to say. They're just fun characters. Nothing super complicated about them. Yeah. Oop, that's not going to fit. There we go. Next up. It's really hard to follow up Kamoshida, I'm going to be honest. Kamoshida is such an excellent villain. And maybe it's just the comparison to Kamoshida that everyone gets put down here, or that everyone after him gets put down here, at least that I've covered so far. But yeah, compared to Kamoshida, their arcs just didn't feel quite as memorable is really the only word that I have to describe it. And yeah, let's just move on to the last villain that we have, Malos from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Oops, didn't mean to reorder the tier. I meant to create a new tier. I think I like Malos a little bit more than these guys. So Malos is going to get his own tier here. He could go here as well, but I think he gets his own special tier. Shoutouts to my boy Mutski. If you've seen a certain image of Malos, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's all I gotta say.